Welcome to this HerdMASTER training video. My name's Damien Holly and I'll be taking you through the animal list. First things first, the animal list. This is where you will select animals, put them in worksheets, create filters and test filters for use in other areas of the program like reports or data entry or even just viewing details about the animals. You can also do bulk changes from this area. Now there are two ways of getting to the animal list. You can either go up to the menu bar at the top here, click on animals and go to animal list. Or you can use this button over on the right hand side here as a quick bar button just to open it up. There we are. I'll just make that a bit bigger. You can search for a particular animal up in the search term here, and you can change the field that this is looking on. So for example, if I want to look up H31, I can just type it in here because it's looking at the animal tag, and as I type it will limit it to animals that meet this search term. If I wanted to look by society ID, I could select society ID. I'll just hit refresh so that it knows what it's looking at. And let's say we're looking for 643. Whoops. Okay, we don't have any with 643. Let's go 226, eh? 22. There we go, society ID. Now up here you can also select the worksheet and active filter. These will limit the list to animals that are either on the worksheet or meet the criteria of the filter, or both. Now if you have these selected when you search, it will only search that group. So using these three in combination, you can very quickly get down to the animals you're after. I'll just bring this back to animal tag, hit refresh. Now down the bottom here, you'll see show inactive and show off site. So there's 77 animals in the current view. If I show inactive, I've now got 202. So all my dead animals are still on here, and so they should be, because I need to be able to go back and check things that have happened in previous generations. And if I'm using pedigree percentage, line breeding and stuff like that, then I want all that information from my previous animals. So basically, these are your old herd books. You can also show off site, so if you are using multiple properties, having this checked will show you animals that are on other properties to the location you're currently working. I'll just get rid of those. Now, as you can see here, we've got P183, which was born in 1991. We've got quite a few older animals here. Now, with this list, we can actually look at the animal's details. We can just select the animal and double click, or we can have the animal selected and hit the details button down here. And I'll go through those menu options in a minute. If you're running the stud version of HerdMaster, you'll notice that you've got these tabs up here. If you're on commercial, you'll probably just see an outline of a cow. But this is your breed-specific information, society-specific stuff like EBVs that are generated by breed plan, MVPs if you're importing them, DTC data if you're recording DTC fates for breed plan. And you've got your breed info as well, so whether it was by AI or ET, and if you've got certification or DNA numbers. You'll also see your birth year down here and an inbreeding coefficient. So quite a useful set of tools there. Down the bottom you've got your more general information. So we can see the owner and the breeder, horn status and various other information like that. Any weights recorded against the animal, progeny, pedigree, things like that. Up here is your permanent details on the animal. Some of these are permanent as well, like owner and breeder. Owner should only change if the animal's sold. Breeder shouldn't change ever, as it's who bred the animal. Now you can edit this animal's information from this window, or look up its pedigree and progeny. And by clicking on the name of the sire, I can actually open up a new window, or if you don't have that selected in Site Options, as in the previous video, it will open up in the same window. There's that sire's information, or the dam. And another thing we can do is on the pedigree, we can click this little button to the right to go to that particular animal. So if we wanted to go to the Grand Dam on the sire's side, we could actually just click that button. You can also traverse the pedigree tree in that if I click on the actual name, or the tag, sorry, of the animal, it will actually push forward into the pedigree tree. So if I go to this one, and we can go back, we can also do a report on the pedigree tree from there. Now, from the progeny, I could actually just double click on one of the progeny here and bring it up. Now these buttons with the 3 dots, as we saw earlier in the pedigree, typically that means browse. Now in this case it is a bit different because it just opens up that animal. In the case up here where we've actually got the assigned sire and the assigned dam, we can actually change that information by using the browse button, and it will display a list. And again, you've got show inactive animals, show off-site animals. You can also add a new animal from this window. And you can also show by electronic ID if that's what you're looking for. And again, we have a search bar here, and we can just type in what we're after. So if I just hit OK, change that to 180, we'll probably need to reload this animal to actually have that change go through. So if we close and open, there's 180 still there, and if we go pedigree, there's 180, and there's his sire and dam. Now, as we can see, the date of birth is quite old. He'd be 26 years old at the moment. Obviously, he's no longer alive on our property. Now, we can edit his information directly from here, and anywhere you see a date, you'll also see this drop down. Now, you can just type in dates like so. However, what you can do as well is use the drop down, and this pulls up a generic Windows date picker, and we could pick a date in November there. We can go forward and backwards through the month. However, a good trick to do with these is click on the month and it'll zoom out to all the months. Click on the year and it zooms out to the years within that decade. Zoom out on that decade and you see a bunch of different decades. So let's say this one died in 2001. Say the 1st of the 1st. Make it simple. There we go. So we've now set a fate date. We need to set a fate code. So fate codes, these are set by your society. So if you need to know specifically what codes to use for certain events, talk to your society about that. I'm just making those a bit bigger. You can just change those columns by clicking and dragging in between the column. Now, let's say cold other. In a lot of cases, fates aren't particularly descriptive. They don't tell you exactly what's happening. When we click off the fate, once we've set a fate code, it'll ask us, do you want to make this animal inactive? We say yes, because the animal is dead or it's no longer on our property. So we don't want it appearing with the rest of our active animals when we look for our active animals. Fate reason is a reason that's just used in HerdMaster, and it's just so that if the fate code isn't adequate for describing why you got rid of that animal, you can actually just type it in here. So, I could say old. Now, the next time I come in to do a fate, if I leave that in there, it will actually appear in the drop-down here. And I can build up my own reason codes throughout HerdMaster. And so that way, in a couple generations, I can look back at him and go, why did I get rid of him? Have a look here. Oh, yeah, he was a bit old. Okay, no worries. So now that he's no longer active, we can exit out of there. Now he's no longer active, and we don't have show inactive checked, but as you can see, he's still actually in the list up there. And that's because this animal list was actually open when we opened up his details, and it hasn't actually reloaded this list. So all we have to do here is hit refresh, and he's gone. If we show inactive, P183, there he is again. Uncheck show inactive, and he's gone. Now, we've got quite a few old animals here, so I'll show you how the change button works. Now, let's say we wanted to get rid of every animal which had a birth year of 2001 or lower. So I could use my column filter and just say less than or equal to 2001. And what that will do is it will just look at this column and only display me animals where the value in this column is less than or equal to this. Hit OK, and there we go. So we've got a few little animals there. We know all of them are inactive. We can select them, hit change, and we can change any of these details on all of those animals. So we can bulk change sex, owner, breeder. So in this case, we could make fates. We could give them all a fate code and a fate date. And we could say died, sold, accident. And we'll just zoom out. 2001, wasn't it? So let's go February 25. Now, you'll notice over here I've got active, inactive. I do not have to check that to choose to make them inactive because I'm selecting a fate. I could just make them inactive if I'm not going to be sending the information to my society. If they already know those animals are dead, I can just say inactive and not worry about my fate code. You'll also notice that you can't put in a reason on this page. Now, here we've got our fates. If I hit process, it'll just warn that I'm about to bulk change these 15 animals. Yep, I definitely want to. Do you want to make them inactive as well? Because we've selected fates, it'll ask us that question. And we just hit yes. So they're all gone. Show inactive, and there's all our inactives from previous years, including the ones we selected. Get rid of that. Pull birth year back to all so that we can see all animals. Going back to this menu bar down the bottom. Delete will delete an animal directly from your database. So only use it as a last resort. If you've created a calf and you've stuffed up the calf tag or some minor details, don't delete the calf, because if you've recorded it against a mating, HerdMASTer will have gone in and it will have told the mating that yes, you were correct and the other one's failed. So you want to leave that in place as long as that's correct. Then you can change the calf details. Once it's in here, you can retag its tag, change its name. All those details you can alter. Delete should only be used as a weapon of last resort, so to speak. Add calf, add animal. So it does exactly the same thing as going up to animals, add calf. So it's just a quicker way of doing that. Details, as we saw, open up the animal's details window. Print. Now, print's an interesting one because it will print out this entire animal list as a report. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time. And you could print that out to your printer and it would print out all these columns all the way over. So just be aware you will have a lot of pages that you'll have to line up, depending on what columns you've got showing. As in the previous video, you can turn them on and off just by that little blue button up the top here, and just turn off ones that you don't need. Change, we just did change. Pedigree. Pedigree is an interesting one in that when you've got an animal selected, you can hit pedigree and it'll just come up with that animal's immediate pedigree, and then you can just do a 6th-gen pedigree report or EBV report, and you can do it primarily on animal tag or society ID. That'll just change what's being used in here. You can also show the society or hide, show animal name, prefix plus suffix, so that's your animal details. National ID or electronic ID, if you've got them. And you can traverse that pedigree tree as well. So you can also use the browse button and open up the details of a particular animal. So this is basically just a quick way of doing a few other things straight from the animal list rather than having to go through a few more windows. Remove and worksheet are both related to the same thing. So worksheet will add a bunch of animals to a worksheet. So let's grab our G animals. Let's call this breeding group B, and I'll use these later on. There we go. So now I can take out that search term and I can bring up breeding group B, and it will only show me the animals that are on that worksheet. So worksheets are essentially just a list of animals. They don't have to have anything in common. If I go back here, I could select other animals. Let's say I've got these 3 here, and I could add them to that worksheet. Now, another thing that you can do, and I'll demonstrate this using a third worksheet, and I'll just add them to the test worksheet, is if I'm adding animals to a worksheet or removing them from a worksheet, in this field here, I can actually start typing in the first few letters of the worksheet I'm after, and it will automatically have that highlighted when I use the drop-down, or if I just hit the down arrow on the keyboard. There we go. That is incredibly useful when you have a really long list of worksheets, and there is a way of making worksheets inactive, so they're still in the system but you don't see them in the drop-downs, and that's incredibly useful. So let's go breeding group B actually, and I just use the down arrow to go through the list, up and down arrows. So we'll add them to the specified worksheet. So worksheets, they don't care about the animals. If the animal's on a worksheet, when you've got a worksheet selected, it'll be displayed. It doesn't matter what animal it is, whether it's inactive, active, whatever. If I have shown active checked, and there are inactive animals on that are assigned to this worksheet, they will be displayed. If I had it unchecked, they won't be. Now the big difference between worksheets and filters, so the worksheet, it's just a list of animals. A filter is conditional, so it looks at aspects of the animal and says, okay, you know, its date of birth has to be after 2004. So for example, if I go to add update, we'll add a filter name to onwards. There's our filter name, and we just go birth year has to be greater than or equal to 2004. So it works in a very similar way to your column filters, but this filter can be used anywhere in the program. So, and you've also got this test button over here too, so it can show that. So we'll just close because we're finished with this filter. So it's showing the filter 2004 onwards. Now, if I get out of there and I bring up my worksheet, there's our breeding group B. So that filter would look for everything from 2004 and onwards. So these ones on, basically. And when you have a worksheet selected and a filter selected, what it looks for is any animals on that worksheet that also meet the criteria of the filter. So as long as it meets the filter and it's on the worksheet, it'll display them. So very quickly, if you build up filters, let's say male or female, to get your bulls and your heifers, you can very quickly build up a set of filters that can be assigned to specific worksheets that will very quickly limit your display on anywhere. So data entry, view, edit, reports, when you're doing reports, you can use these. And you can limit the animals down to just what you're after very quickly using these in combination. Now, to remove animals from a worksheet, so let's say we've got breeding group B. Well, let's go test, actually. Test is a better one to do. We can actually hit the select all button down the bottom right here. That'll select all our animals. We can also deselect them, add reminders to them if we're using the reminder system. So when they're selected, we can then hit remove, and it's exactly the same way as assigning them to a worksheet. You can tell them to take them off a specific worksheet, because any animal can belong to any number of worksheets. So we're on the test worksheet. We want to remove all our animals from test, so I'll just type in TE and press down. Yep, we want to remove those. And this is a particularly cool feature of HerdMaster. Once all animals have been removed from a worksheet, the worksheet itself just disappears because it's no longer required. There's no animals on it. If you need it at a later date, you'll be using the worksheet button anyway, so you'll just be adding animals to the worksheet. And that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching.